I'm virtually taking you to the spot where you will see a project titled So Far So Close by Adrian Mulya. As a photographer and activist, Adrian mostly uses photography to raise democracy and human rights issues in Indonesia. This time, he briefly shares his own personal journey.
Nationality is just an identity I take for granted. But in 2016, I experienced an incident that confronted me with my own identity as an Indonesian of Chinese descent. I began to find out about my family history and identity.
Adrian went through his family's photo album that might have looked like a snapshot of any family. The story that lies behind the photo archives will show us the complexity of identity issue within a state can be. He combined the old and black and white photos taken by his grandfather with his color photos to illustrate places and moments in the past and present. The project depicts 3 generations of a Chinese-Indonesian family undergo their destiny.
My grandfather's real name was Lee Yun Fat. He owned a minibus service in Jakarta called Lee Yap, a combination of Lee, his surname, and Yap, my grandmother's surname. My grandfather looked Chinese, but he couldn't speak Chinese. He only spoke Indonesian and Dutch. In Jakarta, my grandfather was the head of a football club. The football club is like a mini Indonesia, with diverse members from Java, Sumatra, and the Indo-Dutch people. In 1960, the Indonesian government instructed people like my grandfather to choose. Do you want to be Indonesian or Chinese? If they choose to be Indonesian, they must change their name to a real Indonesian name and had SBKRI, proof of Indonesia citizenship. This segregation was a legacy inherited from the Dutch colonial era. My grandfather played safe, so he changed his name from Lee Yun Fat to Yahya Mulya. My father's real name was Lee Chong Meo. He never celebrated Chinese New Year in the temple. He was a devout Catholic. He never cared about being a Chinese or Indonesian. But my father kept away a very important paper called SBKRI, or proof of Indonesian citizenship. In his era, Chinese Indonesian couldn't get legally married without this paper. I never know how my family felt about having the state intervening their identity. We never discuss it at home. But for me, being forced to change our name is like stripping away our identity. Being forced to have SBKRI paper is like having the state constantly suspicious of us. And families had to pay some money for the process. It must have been expensive for those living in poverty. Although this dark era has passed, some discrimination stays. In 2016, after my father died, I went to a government office for a permit. They rejected my application because my father wasn't pribumi or not a native Indonesian. Apparently, discrimination against Chinese Indonesian is still part of the law. So, who am I? Am I not a real Indonesian?
It could be a never-ending question and never be a simple answer. Born from a Chinese-Indonesian father, Adrian automatically becomes a Chinese-Indonesian community. In other words, being a member of minority group in this country. As we are all aware, it is never be easy to be a minority, regardless where the group live, either in Indonesia, Europe, or everywhere in the world.